Because we're dry packing our pan over, I'm working over a wood subfloor, I'm going to put down a sheet of plastic. It really doesn't matter what. You can use a cheap garbage bag, a sheet of plastic film just to protect a wall for painting. The point is, we don't want our mud bed to dry too quickly and pull the moisture out of the dry pack we're making. And so literally this is just a membrane. And then over the floor, I'm going to put mesh or lath, wire mesh, plastic mesh, something to reinforce our decking that we're gonna put down. You don't have to do this if you're doing your pan over concrete. Like say you're working in a basement or somewhere like in Wyoming, there's a lot of houses with a main level with a wood subfloor and the basement's concrete. I know California and a lot of states, there's not a lot of basements. So if you're just doing this over a slab, what you're gonna do is you're gonna mix thin set, really, really wet, and put it on your concrete before you do your mud pan to kind of create a bond so that it adheres. But if you're working over wood, that's the application I'm doing. You're gonna do the same thing I'm doing here. So this is just a construction garbage bag. You really can use any sheet of plastic that you would like to. All right, so I have cut my pipe flush with my floor height. I do have a little bit of play, so if you don't, make sure you have space to access it for your glue. However, you don't want this hole to be larger than 5 inches. The Flow Effects instructions say if it's larger, this may not support the flange, and then you might have issues with this moving and tile cracking around here and the seal, and of course you don't want that. So make sure your hole's not too big here or you're gonna need to correct that. So in my case, I have a PVC pipe, so I got a PVC flange. If you have ABS, which is that black pipe, you are going to just use ABS glue. It's just different. PVC pipe, you have primer, which is the purple, and then you have the glue, which could be blue, it could be clear, depending on your state. Some states require you to have the colored primer and glue so their code can tell you've used both. I don't think that's the case everywhere. So we're gonna make sure our pipe is clean. And a couple things I have ready. I have my tape measurer so I can measure square, because with a round flange, this isn't gonna matter, but with square, we do wanna make sure it's not like canted or super crazy. The grate that goes inside has a little bit of wiggle room for micro adjustments, but not too much, so you don't want it to be way off. So we'll measure from the wall, but keep in mind once it's glued, you don't have a lot of room to adjust it. Then I have a level because I want to work with my level. Now I'm going to force it a little bit with screws because I'm going to get as much as I can, and then I'll level it and tighten or loosen my screws. So I have those ready because I know my pipe's a little bit wonky from a bad rough-in job. So that's what I have ready. I'm going to go ahead and prime this is going to go on the outside of this pipe. So I'm going to prime the outside of that, prime the inside of this, and everything that I'm attaching has been cleaned, and then I'm going to do the glue, and then we're going to get it on there. So this is, have everything ready. And my walls, I'll tell you what, are not perfectly square. This is an old house and things are wonky here, so we do the best we can, but sometimes things are not straight. Sometimes we go more for looks straight than is straight when you have an old house and it's made of stone and everything is a little bit, So now I'm gonna go ahead and work with my level to get, because obviously I'm way out of level, and that's because my pipe was at an angle. So we're gonna force this a little bit, which is not ideal, but it's the situation that we are in, unfortunately. So I know I gotta get this corner down. Now this is gonna be our baseline, and we're gonna figure out our height from here to here, our farthest point. Every foot you want a 1/4 inch, code says a 1/4 inch to a half of inch of slope per foot. So we're gonna take our longest distance and calculate a 1/4 inch of slope for that. All right, guys, before we move on, you don't have to do this step yet. You might do it before you pack your shower pan, but one, we want to protect from sewer gases coming into the home, but two, we don't want this part of our flange to get mud in it or really on it. We're just trying to protect it. This part doesn't matter. That's going to be part of our shower pan portion. So I am going to cover this just in painter's tape, and that is going to both protect anything from going in the drain hole, and it's also going to protect sewer gases from coming out into the property, because if you didn't know, sewer gases are toxic, so you don't want them just wafting into your home, even if you're just renovating it and you're not living here. Now we need to start calculating our slope. Code says that from a outer wall to a drain, you need 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch per every foot of slope. And so in my case, I'm going to find my farthest away from the drain angle. And I know it's not that one, and I know it's not that one. So I know which one it is, but if you're not sure, just measure. So we're about 19.5 there. And we are from that corner to there, we're 2 feet. Okay, so if we have 2 feet of slope, that means that 1/4 inch for every foot, that's 1/4 inch for one, 1/4 inch for the second, that's 1/2 inch of slope. So from here to here, I need to be 1/2 inch higher where I start my angle going downwards. Now you can be 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch per foot. So because this is my longest angle, this is going to be my less steep slope, because for instance, I want my angle of drainage to be similar all the way around, so my wall doesn't look like this, where my shower base touches my walls. And so I'm gonna go for whatever this height is, I'm gonna measure and go up 1/2 inch to start here. I'm gonna make a line all the way around, and that's where my screed's gonna start to slope down. So we're gonna start that now. So we're gonna take the height of this plus 1/2 inch. So I have these little blocks that I use, and they had said if you mount this flush, this is gonna be about 3/4 inches high, which is correct. So if this right here is 3/4 of an inch, and your numbers are gonna be different. So this is just to give you an example. If my shower drain flange is 3/4 of an inch above the ground, then 3/4 of an inch plus 1/2 inch is 1.25 inches. So over here, that's how high my line is going to be above everything. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find my point here in this corner. Let me just show you. I'm gonna find my point here in this corner, so my 1.25 inch, and then I'm gonna use a level and make a line all the way around, or you could use a laser level if you have one. The reason I'm gonna do that is I know this floor is not level. Everywhere else in this bathroom, I poured a self-leveling product. I didn't do it here because I knew I was going to be building the shower membrane. So here and here are not level. So I'm going to make sure I use a level instead of measuring from the floor and trusting the floor. So normally what I would do is I would measure my slope and measure from the floor up in my perimeter and tamp down my deck mud and make a slope all the way around. I know my floor here is very unlevel because I poured a leveling membrane in this bathroom and in the other bathroom. I didn't pour it in the pan because I knew I'd be dry packing that, but I just want to show you how off it is. So the height that I want to start my slope at from my drain to my corner is 1.25 inches, which I measured, and it's there, and on the other side there. I took this little stick and went all the way around and put it flat with the floor and drew a line at all the different points around the base of my curb. And see all those different lines? I know my curb is level because I installed it and got it all nice and flush. And so that means that the floor below it, I guess if we're working from the top down, there's different depths we're gonna have to add of mud to get a level shower base. So since we know we can't measure from the bottom up, what we're gonna do is I found this method online, and it's the Tile Coach, and I'll link his channel below. He has a lot of really good tips. This is 100% from him, so this is not my idea. And basically what he does is he makes a line off of the curb, so this, all the way around, and then he works from the curb down instead of from the floor up. So because I know my floor isn't level or flush or whatever, instead of messing with that, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use his method. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna draw a line all the way around the base of the shower, level with the curb. I made a level line all the way around the shower surround that lined up with the height of the shower curb. Then I went to the corner that I had been using as my point of reference and measured the distance from the top of the shower curb downward to where I wanted my slope to start. Then I used that measurement to rip down a board that I put all the way around the edge of the surround. So on two sides, I have the top of my curb, and on the back two sides, I had a board that the bottom of the board was the top height for the beginning of my slope towards the drain. So we went ahead and we got this ledger board all along the sides. So the top of it is flush with the curb, and the bottom of it is the height that we want the top of our slope to start at. So we measured from level at the top down instead of from the bottom up because of our issues with the floor not being level. Then what we did is we took this width, because we have our little boards, and from our farthest distance, we're gonna be able to screed down at our angle right here. And I have a shorter one that I've cut for over here. And I'm actually gonna make one that's a little bit shorter than this because as you can see, this goes all the way across and part of our slope is part of the integrated drain. So I need one that's a little bit shorter so it doesn't come here, it stops before this edge. So I'll make one more short one. But the little notch that we've cut out is just the thickness of our edge board. So the bottom of this screed we're gonna use and our notch, the bottom of that is flush with the bottom of this board. So that's gonna be our edge height, and then it will come across and we get the slope that we want, and we can just work this all the way around. Here's just a quick clip to show you what I meant by having to trim this screed board a little bit shorter. It's hard to see from this angle and not being close up, but the center of the drain is a little bit lower, and if it goes all the way and overlaps to the other side, it messes with the angle. So you want to make sure the end of your screed board does not go to the other side of the drain, but it's within this area that I have covered in green tape or shorter. Now that I have everything prepped, I'm gonna start mixing my deck mud. If you live in an area where you can buy a pre-mixed deck mud, I just live in a really small town and my Home Depot doesn't carry it. Lots of Home Depots do, lots of Lowe's do, lots of Floor & Decors do. I just don't have that in our selection, so I always have to mix my decking mud. So if you're a DIYer, this is the first time you're doing it, just buy the pre-mixed decking mud. It's a great product, it's fine, just use that. I am mixing my own because I don't have the option not to unless I travel to pick up a product. So what I'm gonna do is I am gonna start with a mixture of sand and Portland cement. I am gonna go, you could probably go anywhere from 6 parts sand to 1 part Portland cement to 4 parts sand to 1 part Portland cement. It just depends on the consistency you like. I'm gonna do probably like a 5-1, and then if I need to, I'll add a little bit more Portland cement in as I go. So I'm gonna get my mixture together, and then I'll show you how I add water. My water add is just gonna be by feel. So I want it to feel like if you're playing with sand and making a sand castle, that's kind of the consistency I'm going for. I had always just mixed my decking mud in a bit like a concrete mixing bin, but here's another cool tip I picked up from a Tile Coach video. He takes a big heavy duty construction bag and he mixes everything inside of it without having to, mix it with a hoe. I always used a hoe and mixed it in a bin, and this was super cool, so I wanted to try it. So I mixed my sand, I mixed my Portland cement, I got that mixed really good together, and then I added my water. And I just start with a little bit of water and add more and more. Again, if you're using a bag mix that comes, it's going to tell you exactly how much to add, but since I'm kind of making up my own, I'm going for a feel. This is kind of the look you're going for. You want to be able to compact it together like a snowball, but you want to be able to collapse that. Once I started working with this, and you'll see in the video, I actually think I put a little bit too much water in this, and I put a little more Portland cement than I would have preferred, it still works. I've seen people say they go from a 7:1 ratio all the way to a 4:1 ratio, but if you put too much cement, it kind of balls up and it gets a little bit harder to screed. But I'm always just a little bit paranoid about not putting enough cement in there. I know there's people that use way less in their ratios, but you'll kind of see I had a harder time screeding it than you might possibly if you use less Portland cement. I started to put my deck mud in the shower pan just to kind of get an idea of how much I had made and how much more I needed to potentially make. But one of the things you want to do early on is mix thin set. And so don't get it too close around the underside of the flange, because you're going to mix thin set and you're going to put that on the underside of the flange and really back butter that well. And then you're going to pack the mud, the sand mixture, underneath of that flange, because we really want to support the flange that's going to be right in the drain area. So we really want to pack that in to make sure we support it before we start doing the rest of the area. After I got the mud mix packed really well under the flange, the other thing you want to do if you're using this method is the sides where we have our boards. We want to make sure to pack the mud mix underneath of those really well. I actually, when I was done, I took these off before everything's set up and filled any voids, but really try to pack it under there so you have less to do at that point, or if you don't want to take your boards off until it dries. And then I just started using my screeds and working through the process. I like to use a wood float and a metal trowel and just kind of work through it. You're going to find your groove. The biggest thing is we want the slope. So there's people online that are experts and pros that have been doing this forever, and they can do it faster and it's prettier. But as long as you follow the proper mixtures, you get the right slope and you pack this down, this is going to give you a good end result, even if it's not as artistic throughout the process. If you accidentally gouge a section or take too much out or have a low spot, just go ahead and add a little bit of your mixture in and compact it down with your wood float and get it into that space. You're going to have a moment where your screed slides off, or you hit it with the corner of your trowel, or you make a mistake, and you're just going to fill that back in and make sure that you join it really good. The last thing I did was remove my ledger boards on the two back sides of the shower and pack in a little bit of deck mud to make sure I didn't have any voids there.